We have Congressman Luis Gutierrez on the line, and we have Lorela Praili here talking about how Friday's announcement of the president's immigration policy for dreamers, dream-eligible young folks like yourself who came here as children, how that came about. When you started, the Congressman talked about pressure on the inside, pressure on the outside. Conversations in the White House, very loud conversations happening outside the White House. Were there people telling you to back off when you started going?
Absolutely. I would say even many progressives were telling us, don't do this. It's an important year. You don't want to put the spotlight on the president. And we were saying we don't work for President Obama or the Democrats or the Republicans. We have a responsibility to our community. And there's an opportunity here. The president should be doing his job. And we're going to go after that.
The irony, of course, is that in pushing the president to make this decision, Congressman, what you saw from the Republican reaction says a lot to me about actually this not just being the right policy on the merits, but being the right policy politically, because the reaction gives it away in that sense.
It does, Chris. Let me suggest to you that getting arrested in front of the White House 2 years in a row after we worked so hard to elect this president was not easy, but I think it was important. Not just I, but many activists for the last 3.5 years have been around this country challenging this president. But let me just say that the action he took from a person who has been very critical of this president and has publicly stated this, that the action he took is significant and meaningful, and it is already beginning from the moment he made that announcement to heal the kind of fraying that occurred between a huge Latino community that came out in gangbusters in 2008 to help elect him president and moving forward. And yes, you see the Republicans. So now you see this very stark contrast, one that we wanted. What did Latinos want? They wanted him to fight. They wanted him to shine a light on injustice and unfairness and to be our champion. And what he did Friday was say, I'm your champion. And you know what? Whether it may come a little later than you wanted, but he is our champion, and that's what people wanted to see him do. So you got Mitt Romney, who says that the Dreamers should simply self-deport and that he would veto the DREAM Act. And you have a Barack Obama who is saying, I will use the authority that I have as president to make sure you can stay here. Because what we have to do is stop the deportation, because this will allow us to incorporate. Don't think that after we pass comprehensive immigration reform, which we will do, eventually, we're simply going to say, oh, we were just kidding, why don't you just come on back? No, once you're deported, you are basically gone from the system.
And in some ways, I think the irony of this whole thing is that I think from talking to folks around the White House and some of the advocates also, the White House thought that the increasing of deportation, doubling down on enforcement, was going to create the political space to move things through Congress. I mean, the president said that explicitly in the State of the Union. He said to Congress, I've gotten tough on immigration, so now we can have this conversation. But, of course, that was not how it played out.
It wasn't how it played out because Republicans don't want to see action. In 2004, I and Senator McCain, Senator Kennedy introduced comprehensive. It was bipartisan, it was bicameral, and my colleague, Congressman Flake, was the co-sponsor with me, right? We did it together in the House. It was Flake, Gutierrez, and then when we took over the majority, it was Gutierrez, Flake. And now Congressman Flake is out there in Arizona campaigning as though that never happened. And, of course, he'd like nothing better than for me to go and denounce him, because he probably, and rightfully so, thinks that might help him. But you have to understand, we no longer have that partnership. So the president had to act because Congress would not.
Congressman, I want you to stick around because I want to talk about the possibility of this being something that happens in the second term. And there's a really interesting quote that was given in an article this week that suggested that might be the case. I also want to talk about a little bit of heckling on the White House lawn right after we come back. Hello from New York, I'm Chris Hayes. With me this morning, I have Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Lorela Praili from the immigrant advocacy group Connecticut Students for a Dream, Rolling Stone Magazine's Michael Hastings, and Esther Arma from New York's WBAI FM. We also have Congressman Luis Gutierrez live in Chicago. Lorela, I wanted to explain a little bit. We have to get too into the weeds of the way this is not an executive order. We should mention first of all that was being reported as an executive order. It's not an executive order. It is a cabinet level directive that comes from Janet Napolitano, and it is an update. It is different than the memo of prosecutorial discretion, which was issued earlier this year, which was basically saying, hey, frontline immigration workers who are dealing with who we should go after and who we shouldn't, these are the metrics you should use to decide whether it's a smart use of the government's resources to go after person A, Lorella Presley, for instance. And it basically said, look, if you have someone in your circumstance, a dreamer, don't deport them. And that was insufficient, right? There was a lot of problem at the ground level getting that to flow through the bureaucracy and be implemented. So how does this announcement on Friday differ, and what difference is it making in the lives of folks right now?
This is a class basis of deferred action, basically, and that is discretionary determination to defer the removal action of an individual as prosecutorial discretion.
Okay, what does that mean?
And that basically means that it's a stopgap measure. It's a temporary relief for a specific group of folks.
And the point is that the assumption is that anyone who meets the criteria, right, they can actually affirmatively apply. That's the key difference, right? It's not that they just have to sit and hope that there's no knock on the door, right? Yeah. They can affirmatively apply and get immigration papers that allow them to stay in the country legally, even if it's not citizenship.
Right. This does not confer someone lawful status, but what it does is it protects someone, right? It protects this category of individuals from being deported, from living a life of fear, and from being able to live their lives fully. So this is huge for people, for the dreamers who have been fighting for this. The president is finally exercising his discretionary authority.
Michael.
Well, I mean, stepping back a little, as obviously there's lives at stake, and obviously these policies are going to be very critical for how this plays out for a generation of undocumented workers. But as the kind of horse race political guy at the table at the moment,
what's it do for the polling?
Yeah,
Michael?
What's it do for the polling? Exactly. One of the most amazing things this week has watching the Obama campaign send out email after email calling this another Mitt Romney Etch-a-Sketch moment.
Right.
And what they mean by that is that we are actually seeing in real time, in excruciating detail, how Mitt Romney is flip-flopping on this critical issue.
Right.
This was a guy who, back during the primaries, as you showed earlier in the clip, who was savagely against any kind of immigration reform, who, when Rick Perry even suggested that you show some compassion, blew a gasket and then made it...
And more than that, let's remember that the way Rick Perry, right, was going to be the great hope, right? And he showed up. And basically, Mitt Romney pulled out this machete called the DREAM Act, which had been passed in Texas, and he just stuck it in Rick Perry's gut over and over and totally dispatched him from the race using this issue by demagoguing on this issue, saying you're giving hundreds of thousands of dollars of discounted tuition to illegals. So let's just remember the context here.
Exactly. And now he's like, well, Marco Rubio says this, I'm going to hide behind Marco Rubio.
Right.
I mean, it's been amazing.
I think also another really important point for me was the political capital that the president is absolutely going to gain with Latinos in Florida, which is a huge swing state for the general election. Because when in his State of the Union address, he literally spoke about he's going to up the deportations, and we saw record numbers in 2011. He was now playing politics with the Republican Party about, if I do this for you, then maybe I can gain something from you. But what he had done was abandon the mandate of the people that had put him into office in the first place. And with this movement, he's literally switched back to the direction of the people. And I wanted to ask you about what that's going to mean, not just for the Latino vote, but for capturing his 2008 hope and change kind of platform that he ran on.
If I could, Chris.
Please, Congressman.
I think it's important to understand that 2 million more Latinos voted in 2008 than 2004.
Exactly.
That 500,000 Latinos turn 18 every year, and they've been doing that for the last 3.5 years. Let me tell you what this is going to allow him to do. And I think this is important. This is a significant move on his part, gesture on his part, initiative on his part, that a whole community of people, you know what they're going to see during September and October, the 2 months before the election? They're going to see up to 800,000 people who we know. I mean, these are our family members. We go to church with them. We go to school with them. They're an integral part of who we are. And the community is going to say, God, there are 11 million undocumented. We care for them all. What a great, courageous first step. So they're going to see them gaining relief. And the difference was, when we first got the prosecutorial discretion, we were so angry and frustrated because just like the Barack Obama administration, they'll do a little bit. So what they said is, if we catch you, dreamer, right, we'll let you go if you apply for prosecutorial discretion. This is an affirmative action, as you suggest, Chris. Now they don't have to wait to get caught. In 60 days, they'll be able to kind of turn themselves in. And as they turn themselves in, they'll be gaining a work permit, a driver's license, and be able to integrate. And let me just say, it's renewable for another 2 years. But what we have to understand, I think, also is there are 11 million. And just like the wonderful young graduate student that you have on your program this morning, who I want to congratulate and all for their tenacity, for their creativity, for the vigor in which they've engaged us all in this debate, I want to say, I want her mom. I want her dad, and the millions of moms and dads that are out there to one day also to be able to live free in this country. And we need to continue to work on that.
That brings me, Congressman and Lorella, and I'd like you to sort of close on this, which is it's the question of the prospects for actual comprehensive reform, right? Because the president did have the authority to do this based on findings of a bunch of legal professors and strong arguments that this is well within the bounds of the executive. But any kind of permanent change to the landscape is going to have to come through Congress. Very quickly, here's a quote from Ryan Lizza. The White House is so convinced of the centrality of Hispanics to the current election and its aftermath that Plouffe told me he had been preparing for months for an onslaught of advertisements from a pro-Romney group attacking Obama from the left on immigration, arguing Obama's deportation border security policies had been too draconian. In that same article, right, worried about being attacked from the left, they imagine a scenario in which Barack Obama is reelected and Republicans, having once again gotten killed among Latino voters, finally understand that they have to do something about that, and that creates the conditions for comprehensive immigration reform in the second term. Congressman, do you see that as a likely scenario?
I do see it, because you know what? I really see this step, and the election is really getting everybody ready. The election will be over. We'll have 4 years. The president will make this an initiative that is important to him and his legacy. And let me just say, I remember in September of 2010, it was Harry Reid fighting for his life out in Nevada, saying we're going to support the dream. And he got savagely attacked for 2 months. And you know what? He won that election. We won Colorado. We won California. And we kept the majority in the Senate because Democrats stood up for immigrants. The president is going to stand up for immigrants and Latinos. You have to understand, I think you have to understand one thing is that Latinos look at you first and say, are you being kind?
Right.
And are you being good with immigrants? And if you are, I will listen to you on other issues. The president has taken a bold step, and he's going to be rewarded, I know, very handsomely.
People are very good in politics at figuring out who's on their side. Congressman Luis Gutierrez, Democrat from Illinois, and Lorella Praeli from the immigrant advocacy group Connecticut Students for a Dream. Thank you both for your time this morning. Really great. What changing demographics mean for the presidential election and the nation, right after this.